Oh, hi there. Welcome to episode 1 of a new Shogi podcast, which I'm calling tentatively Shogi in the West. I've talked about this before on stream and I've got some ideas, but essentially, what I am looking to do here is to have a podcast, a weekly podcast, where we discuss various issues, as will be common to anyone who's ever listened to a podcast. But the focus will be on things that impact shogi players in the West, things, situations, and people of the West. So, as a tentative plan, again, I have some ideas that I will plan to do by myself. So just me blabbing, as is sort of the case on stream. But on stream, we have discussion and other people putting in their 2 cents, but also interviews. And I will give a taste of that interview in the near future. Maybe not the next episode, but possibly the episode after that. And it will be an interview where I will simply interview myself and all the fun that entails from that. But it will be a blueprint of how I'm looking to run these types of interviews. So if you are interested after seeing that video, let me know if you would like to be interviewed. I have names of people who I think would be interesting to interview, but possibly it'll be better to let people come forward. And I'll discuss more in the third interview with what I'm looking for. But essentially, with the theme of this podcast being Shogi in the West, I want to put sort of names and faces to the people that make up our worldwide Shogi community. And so names could be just a first name. It could be just a first name. But I'm planning on doing these video. So video, if you're comfortable with your face being on there, and if you're comfortable with a name being on there, your face, your voice, and your name, and you see what I do in the future episode, let me know, and we can work on getting this interview. I have not done any of the tech here, so it might be, especially for the first couple people, getting a sense of volume levels. How is the recording coming from me versus the person on Zoom, Google Hangout, FaceTime, these other video services, and we'll take it from there. But looking forward to learning, looking forward to discussing things. But that is it. So again, Shogi in the West, going to focus on things that matter to shogi players in the West. And those may be equipment, those may be rules, tournaments, clubs, people, like I said with the interviews. It could be anything. I've got a list of topics that I've put together and will hope to keep the podcast going. But for now, as a brief introduction, I thought that I would introduce something, an idea, and a question that came up on a stream today. And the stream question from a viewer in Japan was, how large is the Western Shogi community? Is the Western Shogi community, or is Shogi popular in the West? And this is not a topic that I haven't talked about on stream before, but I don't know if we've ever come to any sort of conclusion or gotten any sort of real numbers. And so, if you'd like and you have some ideas, anytime, any ideas and responses to today's stream, put it in the stream notes. I'll upload these to YouTube, and I'll upload these, uncertain yet, but I'm going to try to upload it such that it can be consumed in non-video podcast format in a podcast app. That's how I like to consume mine. So the chess podcasts I listen to, the Sopranos podcast, the whatever, the video game podcasts, I will generally listen to those while I'm walking on my phone, and it's purely audio. But as you can see on YouTube, this is video. I figure I'm doing this, I might as well record the scene. And so here we are. But respond, let me know on the Discord. I'll put the Discord link in the notes. I'll put some other links in the notes. And that's really it. Let me know. So back to the question of how large is this community? A thing that I decided to look at was the upcoming, this is upcoming as of July 16, 2025, the upcoming European Shogi Championship / World Open Shogi Championship, which is being held in, I won't pronounce it, Warszawę. I will pronounce it. Warszawę, I believe, Poland. And that event is basically the European Championship that also includes visitors from elsewhere. And the tournament right now has 107 players registered for it. There is one other player that I know that will be attending it from outside of Europe. And maybe they will get some stragglers joining in before the event actually starts a week and a half from now. So that's 107 there. And so that's a good number. In terms of chess tournaments, that's not a huge number, but it's a good number. The 2024 and 2025 US Shogi Championship had between 40 and 45 players each. And so we start adding that up and we get somewhere to like a 150 in terms of tournament players for Europe and the United States. And obviously, these tournaments are not getting every player from these countries. So the United States, for example, there are many players that I know of that were not at this year's event. And by many, I say at least 5 to 10. at least 5 to 10 that would be going to tournaments normally. So that's another factor. And which makes me think maybe we should step back and define what is an active player. What is a member of the United States Shogi community or the Western Shogi community? Something that I came upon on the stream that I can go back and forth on. I don't know really how we define what an active player is, but I think we could say that if someone plays a game of shogi once every 2 weeks, we can consider them an active player, whether that's online, whether that is at a club, we can consider them a player. If someone consumes shogi content, once a week, once every 2 weeks, and likes shogi, even if they're not playing, they consume this content, a stream, a video, a book, Tsume Shogi Problems. Someone who is inside the world of shogi while living outside of Japan and while living outside of China. So in the discussions that I've had, China has not counted towards those numbers. My understanding is that they have a quite large shogi playing population in China. And also, I don't know anyone really in that community. I don't have any sort of attachment into there. So I don't have a great sense of what those numbers could be. So when I am talking about these numbers in the West, and obviously China is never considered the West, but I think in shogi terms, when people say the West, it often simply means outside of Japan and outside of China. So there are are incredibly strong players, or is at least one very strong player in Singapore. There are strong players in Thailand. There are people that in areas that would not otherwise be considered the West. But for naming purposes, I am calling it the West, outside of Japan, outside of China. And so those numbers, what are those? I've already said that these two tournaments that we have, the European tournament and the American tournament, the United States tournament, the 150 people, and there's not much overlap or any overlap this year in those players. So that's 150. Brazil has a huge player population. When you think about when I think about player populations in the world outside of Japan and China, I think of, my order would have been Belarus. It would have been United States, Germany, France, but Brazil, I would probably, I don't know, but in my mind, in terms of number of players, potentially up there with the United States for number of players, potentially more. Japan or Brazil has, my understanding is, the largest Japanese population outside of Japan, and so the game is quite popular. There has been a lot of movement and a lot of organization over the decades. They have a historic association that has title holders going back decades, many decades, in fact. And so they have a lot of players. And so we start rounding these numbers in. 150 for these two big tournaments. Let's say another 50 to 100 for Brazil. I've witnessed or watched some Brazil tournaments. They don't necessarily get as many as 40 from what I can tell, but the player base is not playing. It's a huge country, so not all players go or attend these tournaments. So let's say there's 50 there. We've got 150 tournament players in Europe and the United States, 50 there. Let's take Vietnam. Let's take Singapore. Let's take Thailand. Is that in Malaysia? Is that 25 players, regular players out there? 50 regular players? I don't know. Let's just conservatively put another 25. So that's 150 plus 25, that's 175 plus 50. The 50, which is almost certainly very low from Brazil, and add to that. So we're at 225. Keep adding. What else now? Do we double that for in terms of just trying to make a safe estimate? I'm not sure, but I do know that in the United States, there, like I said, there were 40 people at this recent tournament. However, when I think of Northern California right now, which is where this podcast is coming from, we have three main shogi clubs. There is the East Bay Shogi Club, there is the San Francisco Shogi Club, and there is the Silicon Valley Shogi Club. I attend all of these. I mostly attend the one that is furthest from me, which is kind of weird, but anyone who's heard my stream has heard this spiel. But those do not necessarily have all that much overlap. The East Bay Shogi Club is relatively small. We had a peak of 6 or 7 players. This past weekend was 6. I'm not sure if I would call everyone that was there a shogi player or a member of the Western shogi community for terms of this discussion, because they've come once. Will they come again? I don't know. But we say there's 6 there. San Francisco Shogi Club usually has between 6 and 10. There's some overlap in there. So we conservatively say let's 15 between those two. Silicon Valley Shogi Club, I believe, is the largest of the shogi clubs in the in the Bay Area, or in the Northern California area. And when I was going, it was usually somewhere averaging or getting around 10 people, 10 to 15. It may be around that. I haven't been there for a couple, 3 months, but that club has some strong players, and it has a lot of beginners, so it gets more. It's one of those clubs that is on meetup.com for anyone unsure about that. And it seems to continually get new people from that. And it's a great thing. And people are interested. They want to know what to do. People are looking for things to do. And so, yeah. So there's that. So that means let's say there are 20 people who would regularly come to the Silicon Valley Shogi Club. Obviously, if there are 10 to 15 every week, not everyone is going to be there. So let's say there's 20 people. Conservatively, let's say there are 15 people. So 15 plus 15 for the SF / East Bay, and that's 30. So that's 30 people. And like I said, this tournament has had 40 to 45 people for the past 2 years, the US Shogi Championship. So clearly, not every player is attending this tournament. This is the numbers for the clubs I was giving were simply Northern California. Southern California, Los Angeles, has a pretty good sized player population. They're right up there, I would say, probably with Northern California, if not maybe a little less. There's Swarthmore, which is at the university, which Alan Baker, I believe, runs that. This is another good-sized and long-established shogi club in the United States. Seattle has some players. Phoenix has a growing base. New York has a club with some very strong players. None of these are as big, I think, as Northern California, but there are players. And so we get to that point where, when I count up these clubs and the potential for the clubs, we are looking probably at least, I'm thinking, at least 100-ish active players, and the people that don't go to clubs, the people that simply play online. So we probably in the United States have at least 100 players. And that is 2.5 times the number of people that we got to the US Shogi Championship. So if I try to extrapolate from that to the European tournament and Brazil, maybe we're looking at somewhere around 500 players, just conservatively, 500 active shogi players in the West. And it makes, I know it makes things difficult. So when a community is that small, let's say that's a number. Maybe it's more. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I would love to get messages on the Discord or anywhere. These are things and topics that I love to, I don't want to say debate, because we're trying to find the answer. There are topics I'd love to just turn over and mull over with people, because I'm curious. How many books? The reason I think these numbers matter is because, to a certain extent, it dictates the kind of interest that exists for potentially English language materials and English language content and English language events. If we know we have 500 people, that's different than if we know we have 5,000 people. If we have 5,000 people, now all of a sudden, someone who might otherwise not want to write a book for a handful of people might say, "Oh, there are 5,000 people. If I write this book, maybe I'll get 50 or 100 readers. Maybe I'll get 1,000. Be optimistic." someone streaming. I know this because I'm streaming. Someone streaming or making YouTube content might say, all right, well, if I dedicate myself to this and I invest in streaming equipment and I invest my hours into making this cool YouTube high production value content, what can I hope to get in terms of viewers? And if it's 50 viewers, that is a very different answer from 5,000 viewers. So I think getting these kinds of numbers is meaningful. I would love to know, for example, how many books Nekomato has sold in English. Nekomato is run by Madoka Kitao, who is a ladies professional who has been one of the great ambassadors to the West for Shogi. And she has, among other things, created a company, Nekomato, that sells equipment online. The website exists. If you search for Nekomato, beware of the SSL and all that stuff. It's not the most up-to-date website, but they have equipment, they have books, and they do lessons. I don't know how many, if any, English language lessons they would give. Maybe it's all Japanese speaking teachers, because they do also support their own community. They're not just for the West. But there are a number of books that have been translated, and in a future podcast I'll go over those books. But there are a number of books that have been translated into English, and they're great. They're legitimately good books. As someone who likes chess books and who likes Go books, I may not play chess or Go or very well or at all, but I like the learning. I like studying these things. I think our shogi books are pretty good, and the quality of publication for these Nekomatos, I would say, is verging on outstanding. The books they have a great tactile feel. They look good. The sizing is very nice and compact for doing problems. Great stuff. But I would be very curious how many they've sold. Did they invest in making these English language books and say, okay, if you build it, they will come, and then maybe stop after maybe very few people came? I don't know. Or maybe a bunch of people came and they're still working on making new ones. I don't think so, because I haven't seen a new English language shogi book in a while. But these are numbers that would be interesting to anyone potentially deciding to do that. Let's say someone in the West who is a shogi player, a higher level shogi player, or someone who's sort of a theoretician who would be capable of writing a book. I mean, not that I am that, but I've considered creating or writing an Urashino Ryu guide. How to play Urashino Ryu. And as a relatively weak amateur, guided with the engine and guided with some experience of watching higher level people play, I think that is a possibility. But anyway, we have better players than me who could write better books, and they might be on the fence thinking, what can I do? What if I invest X number of hours, can I get X, divided by 1,000 number of dollars for this thing? And so it's an interesting question for me, how many players we have. And outside of that, just taking that question and twisting it a bit, of the players that we have, how many active players would consider themselves serious players? Or how many active players have shogi as their primary game, and a game that they would dedicate their time, their money, and their sort of, not ego, but their invest their self into? How many people are like that? And this is a question I wonder about the European Shogi Championship. So I look at that number. I see that right now there's 107. 107 shogi-loving souls have signed up for the European Shogi Championship. Of those, considering that Europe is a very strong chess country as well, of those, how many of those shogi players consider shogi as their main game? Or are some of these people chess players or something else, Go player, that is only going to the event and only playing shogi occasionally, just for fun, just for fun? I don't know. I don't know those answers. How do we get these answers? I think polling. How do you poll? How do you poll? We ask people at tournaments. I don't know. We put up a poll on Shogi Harbor. Shogi Harbor is a Discord run by the only Western shogi professional, Carolina, and I don't know how to pronounce her new last name in French, and I don't know how to pronounce her maiden name in Polish, so I will avoid that. But Carolina Sensei, and what is her what is her take? And her Discord has, I think, 2,500 people registered, in it or signed up for it. Not that many are active, and how many of those have gone away, I don't know. But yeah, these are interesting questions to me. How many do I have? And how many of them are serious about shogi? So we have active, and then we have serious. I don't know the answer, as I said, but I would like to know. So please, if you have ideas, send them my way. We can discuss it on a further podcast. We can discuss it in the stream. We can discuss it in the streets. We can discuss it anywhere, and let's do it. So that's majorly the question that I had for today's event, which is the first podcast for Shogi in the West. And I am going to cut it off there. Start small, start with a basic topic, and hopefully the next ones as they come out will be to your taste, and just a little something that the shogi community can maybe gather around. We don't have a podcast. As far as I know, this is the first English language shogi podcast. I'm sure there must be a Japanese podcast, but we don't have podcasts. We don't have many streamers. We don't have many books, and we don't have many YouTubers. We don't have much in this community of ours. But what we have, I think, is good. And what we have, I think I like, but I would like to see more. So if we look back to when I started streaming in December of 2023, one of the goals was to stream, show people how much how interesting the game is and how fun it can be, and to I'm searching for the word here. The word is not inspire, but the word is to maybe encourage players who are stronger than me and more interesting than I am to stream themselves, to create more content themselves. Because I, as someone who loves shogi and is trying to learn shogi, I want content as much or more than anyone. So that's what this podcast, I hope, if nothing, can accomplish, is to get other people talking, get potentially other podcasts. The chess world, obviously, we're never going to compete with the chess world. But the chess world has, I think, at last count, a bazillion podcasts. And there's one for every taste. There are multiple for every taste. And I consume a decent number of these. And I like them a lot. I love listening to it. That and a Go podcast called Starpoint Podcast. These podcasts are the closest that I will get to a shogi podcast until now. But I'm just gonna have to listen to myself. So that's it. I'm hoping this can be a start. Always want to try to get more interest in this shogi world. When people come in, they're interested in the game, or they saw it on a manga, or they saw it on an anime, or they saw it in a coffee shop, as many people do when they see us playing on Sunday mornings. And they ask, what is this game? And it looks interesting to them. And they start playing, they start trying to learn. I would like to see there be more things for what's next. Not how to learn the moves, not that kind of stuff. Something to get just a little meat on the bone of the game. And I think for me, that's streams, that's podcasts, that's books, that's something that someone who is dedicated to this game can latch onto and consume and appreciate and just feel some life in this world, in this shogi world. And hopefully I'll be able to accomplish some of these goals. If my stream is any indication, these first few podcasts are going to be rough, so bear with me. And potentially they may all be rough from now on. But I'm doing my best on stream. I'm doing my best on podcasts. I will do my best, continue to give some sort of listening material for shogi lovers out there. And let me know if you like it. Let me know if you don't like it. And let me know if you would like to hear anything else. If you have ideas for the podcast. And of course, coming out, I'll have my interview, my self-interview. And if you want to be interviewed, let me know. And we'll give that a shot. So thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening. I hope you stop by on episode 2 next week and enjoy your shogi. Take care. Bye.